If you want a nursing home alternative, you want to look at Aala Mall in Cebu City. Aala Mall in Cebu is basically it's a nursing home. You can live in an apartment building that is attached to Aala Mall, or you can live across the quiet street. But basically, all you have to do as an older guy is just walk over to Aala Mall every day. Everything is there. But it's a little more luxurious and a little more fun than a senior care home. I mean, it's restaurants, banks, bars, burgers, coffee, immigration, everything is inside of Aala Mall. The downside of Aala Mall is the Wi-Fi freaking stinks. You can only use it for 2 hours every 24 hours, which is ridiculous. But it's part of living in the Philly. I mean, here they hate giving people Wi-Fi for some unknown reason. I mean, God forbid anyone wants to use the Wi-Fi. And on top of that, the data sucks there in Aala Mall. So it's hard to access the internet in Aala. But between you, me, and the lamppost, if you want Wi-Fi in Aala Mall, go to the bar on the 4th floor, the open air floor. They have their own Wi-Fi and it's very good Wi-Fi. But yes, I know older peeps who just live next to Aala Mall and everything they need is in Aala, just 7 days a week. They go to Aala, maybe 3 times. They just have all their meals there. And if you're too old to go shopping there, you can just hire a nanny to take care of you and do the shopping for you. And just an FYI, the most luxurious apartments in Aala would be about 1,000 USD or 50,000 pesos for a 3-bedroom in the most luxurious building in the area. So the rents are between $400 and 1,000 USD, and that is all new upscale apartments. They don't have old style apartments in that area. If you have no money, hey, look, you will hear all the time you should have at least $10,000 in savings minimum and, such and such money every month coming in. Well, screw that. I mean, obviously, the more money, the better. But don't discount the genius of the poor guy who knows how to get through in life on a budget. All you have to do is simply pre-plan what exactly you're going to do with your budget in order to live there efficiently. Like, where are the cheaper places to live? Skip the bars and drink at home. Skip Aala Mall. Eat eggs and rice. If you buy food at the market, you can eat for $1 a meal. Some may call it not living, like just existing. I've heard this phrase before. Okay, well, I mean, if that is your option, because you don't have much money. Not everyone was successful in life. I'd rather exist in the Philippines than exist at home in the West. When I hear talk of like an emergency fund, okay, screw that. Like, if you don't have it, you don't have it. What are you going to do? I mean, look at it this way, folks. If you're screwed, you're screwed. I mean, there are guys who have, heart disease, liver disease, cancer, high blood pressure, or whatever, and they are constantly scrambling to buy medicine and going on about medical care in the Philippines. Seeing doctor and getting this and that, flying home because they don't perform some medical thing here. I mean, hey, if it's your time, it is your freaking time. I don't know why people stress about dying. I mean, if it's your time, it's your time. But back to the point here, folks. You could live in the province of Bohol for like $500 a month, excluding immigration and whatnot, just living cost. For example, Hagna Bohol is a great place to live. And you could pay $60 a month for rent, for a bachelor pad there. And, you eat $1 a meal. I mean, how much are you really spending? And remember, the best things in life are free. So if you have a small pension, do not be afraid, you can retire in the Philippines. If you like alcohol or the bar kind of life, then you gotta come to Angela City or Dumaguete. These are great cities to retire in, and I would include Cebu City Aala Mall for that drinking life too, if that's what you're into. There are a lot of guys who just like to sip on a cold beer all day, or maybe sip on an Americano. But I mean, there really isn't a lot to do in life once you retire. I mean, I met guys every day while walking around Angela City here, or Cebu, or Dumaguete, and you say like, well, what are you up to? And they say, nothing. I mean, what do you do all day? You can drive to the mountains and go for a hike, but some people, it's like, bah humbug. I mean, once your kids are growing and you don't have a job anymore, no girlfriend, no wife, I mean, it's just time to sip on a cold one and relax. Of course, you get those guys who put their hands on their hips and say, I don't drink, so what can I do? Well, basically, you're screwed. There is nothing else to do. Actually, that's not true. If you have a hobby, that's good, like maybe scootering around the province. I think that's a good hobby. Visiting places around the Philippines, which we will talk about later in this vid. We will elaborate more on the traveling. But hey, what you do all day is really up to you kind of thing. I mean, we're all into different things. I mean, personally, I'm in Angeles right now, and I love sipping on a cold one all day. Talking, I sip on a cold one at the bar. I talk to the, how do you say, people, the professionals, shall I say? Well, we're all a little professional in our own way. There's nothing wrong with that. But basically, folks, the longer you're in a city, a particular city, the more friends you're going to make there. The more niches you're going to find. But making friends is cool. It just gives you someone to talk to. Girls is the name of the game for many foreigners that come to the Philippines. I mean, the girls here speak English, unlike Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam. I mean, look, on top of that, like whatever your value is in the USA, that value increases when you get to the Philippines. Now, that doesn't mean you're a 10. I mean, it simply means, like, if you were a 1 in the US, you're maybe a 2.5, and if you were a 2.5 in the USA, maybe now you're a 4. You know what I'm saying? Hey, I knew a guy who is a retired truck driver in the USA. He was 65, had a stomach on him. He did look like a trucker. So he retired, and he had an 18-year-old girlfriend he met online prior to retiring. Disgusting, I know, okay, but that's just how it is. He met her online. She's here in the Philippines and in Manila. Anyway, she got pregnant like as soon as the guy arrived here, basically. I guess he had one thing on his mind, and 10 years later they are still happily together. And I know guys who have met great girls their own age, and they're still happy. So there is the perfect girl here for you. So these girls, they were available because the man came to the Philippines. If they hadn't come here, I bet they'd still be single back in the USA. I mean, the girl is not going to fly there to see you. So girls and love and companionship is definitely a big reason to retire in the Philippines. If you like to complain, the Philippines is perfect. There is a lot to complain about here. And don't listen to the people who say, if you don't like it, go home. I mean, these guys who complain about the complainers are total wimps. An example of this kind of guy, I call them the complainer police. An example is kind of like this. There's a lineup for the bank ATM. This lineup takes about 8 hours to get through sometime. They're camping out all night, trying to get close to the front of the line. And so daylight comes up, there's a long lineup, there's some other foreigners there. And these complainer police, they got their hands on their hips looking for anyone who's complaining about the lineup. And if they see a complainer, they say, hey, buddy, if you don't like it, go home. Then they look for someone else who's complaining. Hey, buddy, same thing. Then after 8 hours of waiting for the ATM machine, they get to the front of the line and the ATM machine is empty and they say, God damn it, this stupid thing. And you walk by and say, hey, buddy, if you don't like it, go home. The moral of the story being, we all have bad days. We all complain. We all have our adjustment period to new surroundings. I've even heard Filipinos complain about Canada and about Vancouver, and even about South Korea. I was living there for 20 years. I knew OFWs there. But I've never heard anyone say to the Filipinos, if you don't like it, go home. Because complaining is just what some people do. You complain, you get it out of your system, and either you learn to live with it, or you get yourself out of the country, as many do. And then you find the right place for you. It's a perfect match. You don't listen to someone else telling you to get out or to leave the country. These complainers who complain about their new surroundings are called negative Nancy's. But what you overlook is that maybe a year from now, they're positive Pats. They just had to get that adjustment period out of the way. So yes, complaining happens. It's just going to happen. And a lot of guys, they stay here for a year and then they move on because it just wasn't for them. But, people are going to complain. And if they don't complain, they're kind of being fake. Let's just be realistic. But, you learn to live with it. Let's move on to number 6, folks. If you have no patience, Philippines is el perfecto. Let's talk about this, folks. Today I was at bar in Angeles and I sat down and I was waiting to get served, and the waitress saw me as I put my hand up. Obviously I'm a customer. If I got my hand up, it means I'm ready to be served. I know she saw me because we made eye contact. So I assumed, when she was done doing what she was doing, she would come and, take my order. So anyway, 30 seconds pass and I look back, I wonder where she is, and now she's talking to the bouncer guy at the front door. And I look a bit frazzled. So I ring the bell and I put up my hand again. She goes, gets a menu, comes to me, and I said, "Didn't you see me a while ago? I just put up my hand." And she said, "Yes, I don't know, you changed your chair." Which I did. I did change my chair. I said, yes, I changed because, those guys were too loud. There were two guys, they were talking bad about Trumpo, El Trumpo. And they were talking loud, a bit too loud for me. So I moved because, I didn't want to assume their gender or their pronoun or anything. I didn't want to risk offending them. But I moved to another stool, basically, right? So I said to the waitress, "Why didn't you sort of come here and take my order?" I was just kind of a little bit confused, How does that not happen? And, I wasn't giving her the third degree. It was just a simple question. I'm just puzzled how she didn't see my hand up. And then she didn't see me. I just moved, 5 stools down. She saw, we made eye contact when I put my hand up, but, she didn't come over to take my order. So I tell her what I want. And as I'm telling her what I want, I realize she's sort of looking out the window. She's not looking at me. And then when I was done taking the order, she turns around and walks away. And I'm not even sure she fully computed what I ordered because there was no sort of eye contact. There was no confirmation like, "Yes, sir," something like that. So as she walked away, the guy on the stool next to me said, "Why are you giving her a hard time?" I said, "No, I'm not giving her a hard time. I'm just puzzled why she didn't come over and take my order." And he said, "Well, just wait, she will come." And I said, "I don't think she would come." Sometimes, I put up my hand there and I even ring the bell and still nobody comes. This is once in a while, or, to be honest, not so once in a while situation there at the bar. And it's hard for us to understand why this can happen. This level of service. But that is all part of the adjustment period. You simply learn how to deal with it. You get used to it. For example, when I'm at Philly's now and I put up my hand or I ring the bell and there are no servers coming to me, they're all sort of socializing, having a laugh. Now, what I'll do is I'll go up to them and order instead of waiting for them to stop talking to each other and actually look around the bar. But yes, if you have no patience, then Phil's is definitely for you because there is always a simple workaround. I've seen guys waiting at an ATM lineup and, they leave the lineup, with an obvious frustration. Well, what do? You just plan to take out money at a regular time when there are no lineups. There are workarounds. There are workarounds to any of these frustrations that you might have living in the Philippines. Let's move on to number 7, folks. Some people are a bit picky about their food. Well, you should come to the Philippines. It will be the perfect place for you. Many foreigners here, they say the food here is not for them. Okay? As if the Philippines is trying to impress them or anything. And personally, I don't understand this. I love Filipino food. Adobo is my favorite, but everything from sinigang to lumpia to inasal, pancit, lechon, Bicol Express, kinilaw, the food here is beautiful. I even love, the morning pandesal. It's 2 pesos each. The usual case for foreigners who don't like the food here, they say there are no Filipino restaurants in foreign countries for obvious reasons. But personally, okay, my own opinion, I just say that the people in other countries, they don't know what they're missing. If you enjoy animal noises, the Philippines is for you. I remember living in Dumaguete, and my favorite thing to do there was to wake up at 4 a.m. or so and sit on the patio by myself and enjoy a cup of coffee. I liked it because it was just so freaking peaceful, and the birds were chirping and the insects were making their noises, and it was just kind of like serenity now, among nature. Then later on, the roosters start going at it, and the roosters just sort of signify a real Filipino morning. Personally, I love the rooster sound. I understand why this bothers some foreigners. They're just not used to the roosters. But personally, I love the sound. It's just sort of quintessential Filipino morning, when you hear the roosters. There are 2 bad parts to the noise here. And one is the dogs, and the other is the insanely loud muffler noises from the vehicles that go by. But the thing is, it's common here to keep dogs in small cages all day, like for 24 hours. Why not just let the dog walk around your property? Why keep him in a cage? But that's just what they do here. I don't understand it. I don't understand why they do that. I knew a Filipina in Korea, and she bought a house for her parents in Cavite. and they had a dog. And I said to her, like, don't tell me you keep the dog in a small cage. And she just smiled. I said, you don't do that, do you? And she said, yeah, I think it is in a cage. I said, why do you keep it in a cage? I mean, do you want to be in a cage? No, you don't. So why do you think the dog wants to be in a cage? And she said, it's an animal. Okay, so why do you want a dog to begin with if you're just going to keep it in a cage all the time? And the reason was that, there is no reason. That is the reason. She just said, I don't know. And the thing is, they just don't care about the dog. I mean, obviously, it's torture for the dog and the heat, but, that's just how it is here. If you have a medical condition, then the Philippines is for you. I have heard people say that if you're sick, you should stay in America for the medical care there, like in order to treat your condition. Well, I say that what you need to do is just research the Philippines healthcare system, because there is a lot of great health facilities here, and they're affordable and they're convenient. I mean, if you live in Davao, they have one of the most underrated healthcare systems in the world, as does small town Malaybalay. When you think of needing healthcare, people automatically think of Manila or Changhua in Cebu. No. There are many, many good healthcare facilities that can serve you, like throughout the country. I recommend you first research what is your health condition, and then what hospital city specializes in that condition, and then live around that area. If you have a heart condition, for example, live in Davao. They have many top heart specialists there. As a default, use Malaybalay or Davao as your backup cities for great overall healthcare. There are thousands of undiscovered gems in the Philippines. I mean, look, there are 7,000 islands here, and most of them are unmanned. For example, we're talking waterfalls with no tourism. Now, if this waterfall was in Thailand, okay, they would have built a resort around it. But since Philippines is the land of undiscovered gems, it is just in its natural state, its natural surroundings. Often you'll have a waterfall that may charge 100 pesos to enter the area, that kind of thing. But it is still in its natural surroundings. There's no resort there. But for every waterfall that is known and you have to pay to enter, there are many others that are unknown. Another example is like Boracay or Palawan. These are well-known beaches that are popular with tourists because they're beautiful. But what people don't realize is that there are hundreds of Boracays or El Nidos in the Philippines, but they're unknown. Just as beautiful, but without the tourism, because they're just too hard to get to. Can you get to them? Absolutely. It's like a $20 boat ride. But there's just so many blue water, white sand beaches here in the Philippines that there's no point in having a resort on all of them. So the Filipino businessmen, they just focus on building on the already popular places. But yes, if you're into discovery, okay, you're not going to find a better country in the world than the Philippines. There is one negative in the Philippines, and that is that they just don't care about many things. But it's this kind of thing in the Philippines that I actually really love. See, in the West, people will fight over politics or a noisy neighbor or a messy neighbor or just in general things that, if things aren't perfect enough, you have a huffy puff about it there in the West. But in the Philippines, they don't care. They just smile. For example, like the bathroom is dirty in the restaurant. The manager doesn't care. The restaurant staff don't wash their hands after the bathroom. They don't care. I mean, this is very serious in the West, but here they just don't care. The server takes, 30 minutes to bring your order, and then it's only your order. Your partner has to wait longer for their order. It happens because they just don't care about good service or making you happy. For example, one time I had a hair in my breakfast in Dumaguete at the Bo's coffee shop, and I ate around the hair, okay? Because in the Philippines, you don't want to make a huffy puff about anything. So anyway, I ate around the hair, and I brought my plate back to the cashier afterwards and said, by the way, you can see there's a hair in my breakfast. No biggie, just letting you know, maybe the chef can wear a hairnet or something. And, I gotta be honest, I thought maybe they're gonna say sorry, give me a free coffee or something like that. But there's no free coffee because they don't care. They don't care if there's a hair in your food. When I showed him the hair, the guy literally said, yes, sir. Okay, imagine that. There's a hair in my breakfast. Yes, sir. Okay? And that's all he said. I mean, the cook didn't see the hair. The server didn't see the hair because they don't care. You will often see the employees of a store just sort of, goofing around. For example, you'll have 10 employees, 2 are working hard, usually the girls, and 8 of them are just sort of goofing around. And I'm being serious here. They're sort of just socializing. Another example, I remember at Dumaguete at the City Mall, the cashier needed a price check. Okay, so her helper walked over to get the price check. See, the thing that shocked me was that he walked, okay, just casually. I mean, there's a lineup of people behind me and just zero sense of urgency for this boy to go and get the price check. It's puzzling for us that they often just don't care, but all this sense of urgency that exists elsewhere does not exist here in the Philippines. And to get used to it, you've got to lose your own sense of urgency. But all in all, if you just understand the 3 words, they don't care, then your time in the Philippines will be a cakewalk. And really, in my opinion, of like 10 guys who decided to retire here, maybe 3 will go home. 7 will stay. And those 3 who left, I'm sure they just didn't plan things right for them. They didn't choose the right city. They didn't choose the right specific area. They didn't look into things that interest them being in that place. For example, one guy I talked to who was leaving said he was sick of the incompetence. That's what he said. Okay, well, if he was dedicated to staying here, he could have managed to do more things for himself in order to avoid that, what he feels it is. And another guy I talked to said he doesn't like the pollution. Okay, well, if pollution is important to you, then don't live in a busy area. I mean, there's pollution all over the world in busy areas. Although, in the West, they do check the mufflers and all that stuff. But that's a minor point. But if pollution or noise is important to you, then live in a quiet area. You can manage your life to be peaceful for yourself. Imagine noise is a big factor for you. And then you live in a busy area like Cebu. Remember, it's up to you to manage your life. You have to manage your own happiness. And it's very easy to do. But for quiet living, I do suggest Malaybalay in Mindanao or one of the thousands of other smaller towns. If a small town is not for you, then live outside of a big city. Of course, there'll be karaoke, but there are towns such as Bayugan in Mindanao that they have a 10 p.m. noise curfew in the city. But personally, I think Malaybalay is the most underrated city in the Philippines. I'll include a video I did on Malaybalay if you are interested in retiring there or looking into it. Until then, my great friends, I'm still in the process of looking and purchasing a scooter. I was looking at getting an NMAX 150, but I just test drove one today and the power scared the crap out of me. I'm in Angeles now, and I was at a Honda dealership, and you gotta wait 4 months to get a registration. It's unreal, which means you can't drive it outside the city for 4 months. I mean, this is the Philippines, folks. I mean, in most countries, they'd see there's a problem and they try to fix it. But in the Philippines, you got to remember, they don't care. Anyway, my great friends, I will update you on the scooter because that'll be the beginning of the adventure. And I will see you on the very next video. Until then.